Wait, who's recording?
I got you.
Oh,
Sure, you might want to sit
You probably will be steadier.
is it recording?
I didn't do it.
You might want to what?
You might want to sit.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, so basically last week we left off on muscle contraction. I think I got like halfway through it, but I didn't finish it obviously. What happens is you have like the neuromuscular junction that we talked about, the connection between the synapse and the nervous system, and then like the muscle fibers in the skeletal muscular system. And then basically what will happen is you'll release calcium through the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and your myosin and actin fibers, which we talked about, the thick and thin fibers in the muscle, will they'll connect via like the cross bridges, and the myosin will pull on the actin, the thinner fiber, via a power stroke, and then they'll shorten the sarcomere, which is muscle contraction. And that's what we're going to talk about today because Parkinson's like directly impacts your muscle contractions.
Okay, so what is Parkinson's disease exactly? Parkinson's disease is a progressive genetic disorder that affects nerve cells in the basal ganglia, and more specifically the substantia nigra, I think it's pronounced, which is located in the thalamus. And if you remember from Friday, we had a slide with the structures of the brain. We could like go back. So yeah, it will be here, and then the thalamus isn't up here, but yeah. So neurons in the substantia nigra produce dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter responsible for relaying messages that plan and control bodily movements, aka like muscle contractions. And the connection between the substantia nigra and the striatum is critical to produce smooth movements. And in Parkinson's disease, for reasons unknown, they mostly think it's genetic, but scientists aren't exactly positive. These neurons in the substantia nigra die off, which result in limiting the release of dopamine, which in effect causes abnormal nerve firing. So if you see in this picture, here's the release of dopamine in a normal neuron, and here's the lesser release of dopamine in a Parkinson's affected neuron, and it's the same picture here. So you can see like here's the dopamine. Okay. So we just went over that, and in result, when you don't have enough dopamine, you can have tremors, slowness of movement, balance problems, and that's why you see when people have Parkinson's that like they tremor in their hands or they like trip when they walk. Oh, that's a quick animation. It has no sound, but see the dopamine's not going to the next cell.
Okay.
Oh wait, one more thing, sorry, before Diego goes on. When the release of dopamine is lessened, the adjacent neurons in the thalamus and globus pallidus become overstimulated, which also can create tremors.
Okay, so this is like the basal ganglion pathways, which is like the original loop, like the functioning brain before Parkinson's disease. So dopamine, which like is the main neurotransmitter in this, which comes from the substantia nigra. Glutamate's like it's involved with synaptic plasticity, which basically means like it regulates like how much certain neurons are used, and like if you use a certain neuron like more, it becomes stronger and stronger. And then GABA is just a principal neurotransmitter that's found like all over the body. So the caudate and the putamen, which Lauren described as like the strontium, these act like as like the doors to the basal ganglion pathways. So these like either regulate, either inhibit or allow the dopamine to pass. So here, D1, right? D1 is the release of dopamine, and then D2 goes to the caudate, and then it goes to the GP and GPI. So these are just like the messenger parts of the basal ganglia pathways. So as you can see, the dopamine enters the caudate or putamen. So let's say it wants to release dopamine. So it would take the direct pathway, which is this. So it would go to the GPI, and then the thalamus. And the thalamus is just like the messenger, which sends signals to the motor cortex, which is involved with voluntary movements. But if it wanted to inhibit the release of dopamine, it would take the indirect pathway, which would go to the GPE, and then the GPI, and then the thalamus. So this wouldn't allow dopamine to be released. And then the hyperdirect path, it bypasses this, the caudate and the putamen, as you can see, and it directly goes to the motor cortex. So what happens during Parkinson's is, as you can see, because no dopamine is going to be released here, the normal pathways can't happen, so the motor cortex won't get the information, so the lack of dopamine will just cause tremors. Okay, so in Parkinson's, there's no like real response by the body, so that's like by their like no like treatments. Well, like you can take medicine, so that's why there's like no real like feedback for the body. So this is the medication that like I talked about, levodopa. And levodopa, you take a pill, and so basically what it does, it combines with an enzyme, and that enzyme turns the levodopa into dopamine. And like in the graph that I just showed you, that would allow the substantia nigra to release the dopamine to send signals to the motor cortex, which would prevent the neurons from happening.
That's it. That's everything. But okay, wait. But I have a Kahoot. I just need to load it.
Copycat.
Do you want to play a game or not? Okay.
Does anybody have any questions while Rianne is?
Is there a reason they have to use something other than dopamine, or you can, or is it possible just to inject dopamine?
Wait, I don't. Are you asking if you can get like an injection?
Oh, just like.
No, instead of using L-dopa, you could use.
Well, okay. So what they do, right? When they you take the levodopa pill, because like it's involved with the central nervous system, they also have to administer carbidopa. Like carbidopa, because levodopa is like pretty bad for you if like you administer it like directly. So the carbidopa kind of like inhibits the.
What's the most reliable treatment?
Levodopa.
Yeah.
Any other treatments or just that?
There are also like these drugs, you call them like agonists or whatever, and it's supposed to help like your the dopamine that you have. Obviously, the reduced dopamine levels that you have is supposed to make them like more effective, but that's not really the standard treatment. The standard treatment definitely is L-dopa, where they try to like restore some of their lost dopamine. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no cure for Parkinson's as of right now. But if you guys know who Michael J. Fox is, he's the actor from Back to the Future. He is affected by Parkinson's, and he's pretty young, and he's raised a lot of money to go into the research for a cure for Parkinson's. So they're obviously working on it.
He's testified in front of Congress a few times on the topic. One of the challenges of the drug is the hardest drug pathway to do anything with is crossing the blood-brain barrier, and that's the big challenge there.
Should I? I know the answer, so I can't.
Okay. That was the last presentation.
Wait, no, we're playing Kahoot.
It's a part of the presentation. Sorry.
Part of?
Yeah.
I made it.
We're supposed to make this fun.
Who's Diego?
Alex.
Flago. Guys.
Fly.
Who's Flavia? Wait, is everyone in?
Yes. I'm not playing.
We only got 14 people.
I can't.
Let's go, Ariane.
Wait. It's fine, it's whatever. I don't really care.
Oh my god.
Wow, okay.
What?
No,
What?
There's literally one in entire slide dedicated.
So there was no
You
feedback.
said there's no cure. Yeah.
There's no cure. There's no feedback
Yeah,
loop from your
it says
body.
medication.
Diego, there's no feedback loop from your body, right? But because L-DOPA uses like an enzyme to create like dopamine, that's attempting to reinstate a feedback loop, albeit from the outside, right? But still feedback.
I blame Diego.
Diego, it's all your fault.
Good job, Shahir. Leave at 1 point.
Wait, there
They're too
Oh my god.
I should have known.
We already talked about this
Wasn't even
also.
a-
So we talked about this, right? The connection between the
Terminal buttons.
yeah, no, terminal buttons are between two neurons, but
Who's the cat?
Yeah, who is?
It's nature.
Please, yay! So we're the one
Who said
person.
acetylcholine?
When did we talk about acetylcholine? I'm
No
not sure.
one's acetylcholine.
What's the thing substantial ego and illness?
Substantia nigra, I think, is more specific.
Yeah.
It's like the
It's like a
the
part
little
of the
part that we pointed to in the diagram. This is obviously a hard.
Yeah, Brianne, come on.
I didn't think it was that hard. I don't know.
We also did the presentation.
Also, our presentation like spins.
Spins. Spins. Good job, guys! Except for the one person.
Who said amnesia?
Good job, Shahir. Oh yeah, I said this very brief.
Oh!
Diego!
Hey, what did you do?
Wait, I don't know if I got it wrong.
Can we get Diego to sit down?
Wow. Yo, that shouldn't count.
This is really bad. I didn't.
What is it? Was
James,
it
James,
difficult
James,
to
James, you're not in the
Let's
Turkey,
go,
okay?
James.
James.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, James.
Okay. Good job, most of you. Look at James. Shahir's unstoppable.
He has 2 places. He's that good.
Oh my god.
Same, I pressed
He literally just.
Oh
no, I switched the spots.
That's not very nice, you know.
Oh, I got this.
It's true, it's true.
Way to go.
Oh gosh.
We talked about this.
Easy.
Oh, I got it.
This sounds like basic. Not bad.
Active, okay.
Shahir is winning still.
Oh my god, my hands are dying.
Who is Rizwan? Is that Thomas?
Hold the 8.
Shahir! Good job, Shahir. We're good. I don't need y'all to rate it. I know it was good.
I'm ready.
Y'all mean.
At least we kept it. At least we
Thank
kept
you.
it alright.
Thank you.